guys! So this is going to be the first video in a series of videos that I want to start. I want to do more book and movie reviews, and basically I want to structure it in a way that there's something for everybody. So first of all, I'm going to talk about just a general synopsis, sort of, and general impressions of the movie or the book that those of you who are not familiar with the story can appreciate, and maybe it can help you to decide whether you want to watch the movie, read the book. Then the second part of the review will be an idea that the story evoked in me. I tend to have a lot of ideas after reading books, watching movies, so I want to share an idea that is sort of independent from the story, get a dialogue going. And then the third part will be the spoiler part, where I get to sort of bring it all together and talk more about my impressions of how the ideas played out in the book or the movie and how it was made, and talk about basically the content of the story that those of you who haven't read it or watched it might not want to hear. So hopefully there would be something for everyone in this format. And let me know if you have any stories, books, movies that you want me to review. If you're writing a comment that might include spoilers, I ask first of all that you try to be a little bit vague if you can, and if you can't, just put the first word spoiler on the comment, and hopefully people can kind of skip over that if they don't want the plot to be revealed. And so now on with the review. The movie that I'm reviewing is Ender's Game. I essentially liked this movie a lot more than I expected to, so I do recommend it. And I actually ended up watching the movie twice because I watched it with one person and then I liked it so much that someone else wanted to watch it, so I ended up watching it with them as well. The movie is based on the novel by Orson Scott Card. I have read only about halfway into the book about a year ago, and I had a lot of things going on, so I didn't finish a story, which actually aided in my appreciation of the movie because I didn't quite know how it was going to end. And it is the first book in a series of books, but it is a standalone story in itself. The acting is great. Asa Butterfield, the kid who plays Ender, oh my goodness, you can see the emotional conflict in his eyes. You can see him thinking, and that's a skill that not all actors have. I thought that the actors in the supporting roles did a great job as well. Everyone did a really good job. The cinematography, the visual aspect of the movie was also really spectacular. It was better than I guess a lot of people imagine it when reading the book. I mean, it was visually appealing to watch. And the conflicts, the battles were not too chaotic. Visual effects don't always impact me that much in a movie. If the movie has cheesy effects like that, so I can ignore that sometimes. But this movie had awesome effects, and I appreciated that. I felt like the movie really drew me in. And there are a lot of plot twists and a depth to the movie that you don't necessarily expect going in. Setting the scene, the aliens have attacked the Earth several years ago, and there were a lot of human casualties. One soldier managed to defeat the aliens, but the aliens are still on their home planet, and the people are thinking that the aliens are going to attack again and the Earth might not survive the second time. So they are looking for someone else who will have the strategic capability, the ability to think outside the box enough to surprise the aliens. And they are resorting to looking for children who they think they can shape into the perfect soldier. Basically, the people are only allowed to have a certain amount of kids. On the plot aspect, who's Ender? Who's Hender? I don't know who Ender is. Ender is a third child. The parents had to have special permission to have him, so there's a lot of weight placed on this kid's shoulders to be the soldier that he wants to make his parents proud. He wants to help save the human race. There's a lot of stuff going on in this kid's head. He's a contender. He's gone farther than his two siblings. His brother is really aggressive. He did not pass because he has sort of sociopathic tendencies. His sister is kind-hearted, but I guess she was too kind-hearted for them to accept her. Ender is sort of a mix of both of them. So he ends up going on to the next level, and you get to see in his training, he's sort of singled out. You get to see a lot of his trials in the training academy. They try to simulate war. Colonel Gaff, he is the one who thinks that Ender might be the perfect soldier, and he tends to see kids more as tools. Even if you're going to save the human race, can you really put them in these situations, these basically traumatic situations, on purpose to see how they react? Just to have an idea of how Ender feels about this. For example, in the book, there's this quote where he's talking to his brother and he says, "They call us children, but they treat us like mice." And so he understands the unfairness of it all, and he almost has a problem with authority. He doesn't follow authority just because the person's in authority. He wants to follow what he believes is right, which in a way sort of makes him a good leader. He understands what is expected of him, just as he has a great deal of empathy for his enemy and so can sort of understand what they're feeling. He has an understanding of what the colonel wants from him. He doesn't want to become like his brother, essentially, but he realizes that the violence that is expected of him is drawing him to that place. Here's another quote from Goodreads from the book. He says, perhaps, this is on Ender's Point, it says, "Perhaps it is impossible to wear an identity without becoming what you pretend to be." So there's an understanding that he's pretending to be this because that's what is expected of him, but what if he becomes this monster that they want him to be? What if he becomes this tool of destruction? And what happens with the aliens and all that, I guess you'll have to watch to find out. But yeah, so Ender is a kid with a lot of moral conflict, a lot of inner conflict that you get to really see in the story and get to go through his trials with him. And the movie does take you with him on his journey, and it does a good job with helping you feel for the main character, which I think is important. It's important to feel for the characters that you're watching. But I think that the movie is pretty true to the book. Also, other reviews that I've seen, and as far as I've read from the book, it is pretty true. Ender's a little bit older, which I think works better for the story. He's 12 in the movie, from what I understand, but he's 6 in the book. And I think part of why I put the book down was because I was like, a 6-year-old doesn't think this way, and it was sort of disturbing me, the things that he was going through. But as a 12-year-old, I guess it makes more sense to me. 2 things I want to add. I'm editing the video right now. One thing is the humor was very effective. It wasn't superfluous, it wasn't too much, but it made you laugh. It lightened up the mood of the movie, so I thought that was very well done. And the second thing is the pacing was well done. So it wasn't too flashy, but it wasn't dull. Like, the movie kept your attention. So those are the 2 things that I wanted to add. Do you hear the wind howling outside? Oh my goodness. So I guess that's all I want to say for the sort of synopsis part, because I don't want to give too much away. But I do definitely recommend watching this movie. You can come back and let me know what you think about it. For the purpose of time, let's move on to number 2. The main idea that I want to talk about is actually an idea that is flashed on the screen. This quote is put up on the screen at the very beginning of the movie, so within the first few seconds of the movie, this is the main thought that is put out there. And it is a quote by the main character, Ender Wiggins, and it says, "In the moment when I truly understand my enemy, understand him well enough to defeat him, then it is also in that very moment that I love him." And I thought that was a very powerful quote to start off a movie, and I was kind of thinking, there might be more to this movie. I might like this movie more than I expected. And the quote reappears in the dialogue of the movie, and the continuation of it is, "I think it is impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them the way that they love themselves." That, I thought, was a great dialogue. So the last part is, "And in that very moment, when I love them, I destroy them." And that part can give you chills and make you sort of step back. But the main character, fortunately, is saying this with a sense of remorse, a sense of fear of his own ability. I know even a sociopath can predict other people's moves sometimes with scary accuracy. But Ender is a person who has the ability for empathy, has a great ability not only to predict other people's actions, but also to empathize with where they're coming from. Oftentimes, like, two different sides can clash for the same reasons, but because of circumstances, they're coming from it from different angles. And sometimes when you truly understand what your opponent, where the person who appears to be your enemy is coming from, you realize that you're not really enemies after all. Like, you are sort of forced to look at the situation from a different angle. And that is something that the main character, Ender Wiggins, does all the time, and that gives him an advantage, but it also makes him step back and look at the situation and question whether it is necessary to respond in the typical way that people expect you to, which is often, in this case, violence. Some other ideas that are brought up, like one idea is, do the ends justify the means? In this movie, like, I guess the stake of the whole planet was involved. Do the stakes change the way that you think about things, the moral implications of your actions, or do they require a greater adherence to thinking through things with truth and empathy and goodness of heart? Like, does that increase the importance of seeing things through that light? Or does it sort of give you an excuse to do things that you're not proud of, to achieve a positive ends, or what you think at the moment seems to be a positive end? And can you, for the sake of perhaps even saving a society of which the person is part of, can you use someone as a tool and destroy who they are? Can you justify that? If one person is worth the sacrifice, and this is not someone who's sacrificing themselves, they're sacrificing someone else. This is not like a willing sacrifice, and this is not necessarily even the sacrifice of someone's life, it's a sacrifice of someone's, like, emotional well-being and entire identity. Can you justify sacrificing that for the safety of more people? Because if you put zero worth on the life of one person, 0 times a million, 0 times a billion is still 0. So how do you calculate that in your head? How do you make that fit? How do you justify it? This movie sort of brings in also ethics of using children for as tools as well, basically people as tools for another purpose, rather than seeing people as and ends within themselves. Is it okay for us to take a child and try to form them in our image? How much freedom do you give a child to find out who they're meant to be? And how much guidance, or I guess the word is guidance. I guess that we should give kids guidance and provide them opportunities, but then allow them to find their own path. Those are my deep thoughts of the story. I wanted to move on because I could probably talk forever of the ideas that are embedded within the Ender's Game. So now on to part 3. So here marks the end of the first video in my Ender Game movie review with the synopsis and thoughts behind the plot. Please click on the link below for part 3 with spoilers. I had to divide up my review into 2 videos because, well, basically for 2 reasons. One, because I figured that the comment section, some of you guys would be kind of scared to post if there might be spoilers. And secondly, I just figured it would get too long and there'd be too much of me in there, so I'm giving you guys a break. But if you want to go right ahead and click on the link to the 3rd part right away, that sounds good to me too. And I hope you're all having a wonderful day and talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye.